Good evening. The Dolores County Broadcasting Network presents the DCTV 4-H evening news program for April 30th of 2019. Our camera person today is Hannah Faulkner. Video and sound engineer and producers Edward. Teleprompter and prompter is Devin. News anchor is Dan Faulkner. Meteorologist is also Dan Faulkner, and this is your news director Jonathan. And now for the news.
Actually, I'll have Junior P on your forehead. That'd be funny. Welcome to the DCTV 4-H Kids Evening News Show. Help us keep our news show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can buy a sponsorship by calling 970-677-419. That's 970-677-419. Now for the news. Hi, I am Daniel, and our first story is from the Durango Herald. Smell smoke, that's the smell of spring. Early risers got a good whiff of smoke in the Animas Valley on Saturday, an alarming smell that may have evoked fearful memories from some in La Plata County. But not to worry, some fire officials said it's no more than a sure sign of spring. Some La Plata County residents were up as early as 5:30 a.m. Saturday to scorch land around the county, said Jeff Harris, Durango Fire Protection District Battalion Chief. People do controlled burns for all kinds of reasons, and not everyone has to report them when they're lit. A lot of it is done in spring, Harris said. When the fire danger is low, it's an almost annual occurrence. But the fires created a haze of smoke visible from downtown Durango, eerily reminiscent of the 416 fire that burned 54,000 acres last summer. It hung above the Animas River and obscured the bluffs of Missionary Ridge and translucent fog, disturbed by wind and kept low in the valley by the brisk morning air. The temperatures in the Animas Valley dipped to 36 Fahrenheit on Saturday morning, said Tom Renwick, forecaster with the National Weather Service in Grand Junction. A calm wind blew at less than 5 miles per hour until 9 a.m. It picked up to about 7 as the sun got higher in the sky. A light breeze, technically just enough to point weather vanes, wisp hair, and rustle leaves. A lack of a real breeze in the morning and the colder temps blocked the smoke from rising up and away from the ground, Harris said. Essentially what happens there is the atmosphere is blocking the smoke from going up and spreads out into the valley. That's why more people notice it. It's not going up and escaping. What the chief is explaining is how agricultural practices are impacted by a meteorological phenomenon called surface-based temperature inversion. So what does that mean? To understand what a temperature inversion is, it's important to know how the atmosphere works. Air is held to the earth by gravity, creating an atmosphere most dense and warmest closest to the surface, and less dense and cooler as it reaches into space. But air, like any form of matter, absorbs energy. It's why an egg cooks in a frying pan over fire, or the sun feels warm on your skin. Air and water share similar physical properties. Cold is more dense than warm, meaning warm air rises and cold sinks. That's why deeper parts of lakes and reservoirs are colder than the surface. When the sun rises in the morning, the mountains often block the sun from shining into the valleys. The cool air rests in the valley as the air above it warmed by the sun, reversing the atmosphere principle that air gets cooler with altitude. Cold air doesn't rise. The cool air, because it's more dense, gets trapped in valleys until the sun rises high enough to warm it without any air escaping the valley. Anything in it stays there too, including smoke. A lot of controlled burns in La Plata County means a lot of smoke. That's why it smelled like a campfire Saturday morning. This story is from the Journal. How vulnerable is Colorado to a measles outbreak due to its low vaccination rate? Experts weigh in. Measles outbreaks continue to pop up across the United States, with the number of confirmed cases of the once eradicated disease now exceeding 700 in 22 states, but so far only one person in Colorado has become ill with the highly contagious virus. In January, a Denver resident was placed in isolation and treated for the respiratory illness after being diagnosed. Following a trip abroad, leading local health officials to the issue a public warning about possible exposure to others. It's the only confirmed case of measles in Colorado this year, but health experts said the state's notoriously low vaccination rate makes communities here vulnerable to a possible outbreak. We've seen it over and over in communities where the vaccination rate is low, said Dr. Jessica Cat-Liddy, a pediatrician at Children's Hospital in Colorado and vaccine researcher. Only 88.7% of the state's kindergartners received the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine during the 2017-18 school year, making it one of the lowest rates in the nation, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. While the childhood immunization rate in Colorado has improved, the issue has become a flashpoint in the General Assembly as a Democratic lawmaker pushes a bill that would make it harder for parents to opt their children out of vaccinations, a measure that is drawing opposition from Governor Jared Polis. Measles is actually the most contagious infectious disease that we know of, Cat-Liddy said. Measles is a virus with symptoms that include high fever, cough, runny nose, watery eyes, and a rash. Up to 90% of the individuals close to a person with the virus can become infected if they aren't immune, according to the CDC. The CDC recommends all children get both doses of the MMR, or measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, beginning with the first one at 12 to 15 months of age. The second dose can be given at 4 to 6 years. In Colorado, state law requires students to be vaccinated against certain diseases including measles, but they can be exempted for medical, religious, or personal belief reasons. For a population to be protected from a measles outbreak, health experts said a community needs at least 95% vaccination rate. So with only 88.7% of kindergartners in the state with the MMR vaccine, Colorado misses the threshold needed for herd immunity. However, the risk can vary depending on the vaccination rate in a particular community, such as a town or school or daycare. For example, in Denver, the MMR immunization rate for kindergartners is 90.2%, but in Boulder County the rate is 81.58%. Jackson County, which only has 10 students, has the state's lowest rate at 20%, and Kiowa County, which has 30 kindergartners, has a 100% immunization rate, according to the data from the state's health department. Measles can spread to Colorado as people travel in and out of the state, especially if they visit an area that has seen an increase in cases, including domestically and abroad. Measles is likely to pass through Colorado at any time, said Dr. Seth Holdy, director of immunology, informatics, and preparedness with Denver Public Health. This story is from the Denver Post. Trump tells NRA he's withdrawing from UN arms trade treaty. It is in a largely symbolic gesture to a group that helped win the White House. President Donald Trump said Friday he is pulling the U.S. back from an international agreement on the arms trade, telling the National Rifle Association the treaty is badly misguided. Trump made the announcement at the NRA's annual convention, where he vowed to fight for gun rights and implored members of the nation's largest pro-gun group, struggling to maintain its influence, to rally behind his re-election bid. It's under assault, he said, of the constitutional right to bear arms. But not while we're here. With pro-gun legislation largely stalled in Congress and few deliverables during Trump's term so far, the president told the group that he would be revoking the United States status as a signatory of the UN Arms Trade Treaty, which regulates the multi-billion-dollar global arms trade in conventional weapons from small arms to battle tanks, combat aircraft, and warships. President Barack Obama signed the pact, which has long been opposed by the NRAs in 2013, but it has never been ratified by the U.S. lawmakers. Under my administration, we will never surrender American sovereignty to anyone, Trump said, before signing a document on stage directing the Senate to halt the ratification process. We will never allow foreign diplomats to trample on your Second Amendment freedom. I hope you're happy, he told the group, then appeared surprised by the cheers. I'm impressed, he said. I don't think too many of you would really know what it is. His move against the treaty came as Trump sought to excite an organization that was pivotal to his victory in 2016, but 3 years later is limping toward the next election, divided and diminished, and it represents just the latest in a series of withdrawals from international pacts and organizations joined by previous administrations like the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal. Gun activists had denounced the treaty when it was under negotiation as an infringement of civil firearm ownership, despite the well-enshrined legal principle that says no treaty can override the Constitution or U.S. law. So the treaty is aimed at cracking down on illicit trading in small arms, thereby curbing violence in some of the most troubled corners of the world. It was the first legally binding treaty to regulate the international trade in conventional arms and was overwhelmingly approved by the 193-member UN General Assembly in April 2013. It has been ratified by 101 countries, but key arms exported, including Russia and China, and major importers such as India and Egypt, have given no indication they will sign it. Advocates of tighter gun restrictions and those who had helped negotiate the treaty denounced Trump's decision Friday. Chris Brown, president of the Brady organization, said will only embolden terrorists and other dangerous actors around the world. And Rachel Stoll, managing director of the Simpson Center and a consultant to the treaty negotiations, said by turning its back on multilateral diplomacy, yet again the United States is disregarding global norms and allowing nefarious actors to trade weapons with impunity. Yet Trump's showy rejection of the agreement from the stage has limited effect because it has been unlikely all along that he would send the treaty to the Senate for ratification. At the United Nations spokesman Stephanie Dujarric called the treaty a landmark achievement in the efforts to ensure responsibility in international arms transfers, and particularly important at a time of renewed interest in expanding weapons arsenals. Trump's speech came at a troubled time for the gun rights organization, a one-time Republican kingmaker which has been grappling with infighting, bleeding money, and facing a series of investigations in its operating practices, including allegations that covert Russian agents seeking to influence the 2016 election courted its officials and funneled money through the group. As Trump landed in Indianapolis, a judge imposed an 18-month prison term on gun rights activist Maria Butina, a admitted Russian agent who, according to her plea agreement, worked with a former Russian lawmaker to use their contracts in the NRA to pursue back channels to American conservatives during the 2016 presidential campaign. While the group had high hopes for easing gun regulations after pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into 2016 campaigns, much of the legislation the group championed has stalled due in part to a series of mass shootings, including the massacre at a Parkland, Florida high school that left 17 dead. Adam Winkler, a UCLA law professor and expert on gun policy, allowed that the group had scored some victories under Trump, including the appointment of 2 Supreme Court justices who may be open to striking down gun laws. But overall, he said, on the legislative front, the NRA has been frustrated with priorities like national reciprocity for concealed carry and a repeal of the ban on silencers stalled. Instead, Trump introduced a new federal regulation, a ban on bump stocks, after a man using a device opened fire on a crowd of concert goers on the Las Vegas Strip, killing 58 people and wounding hundreds. That bothered me. Some members attending the convention, even as many donned Make America Great Again hats and cheered Trump loudly. Mike Cook, who works at a shipyard in Alabama, said he's been disappointed that gun rights haven't seen much movement under Trump. The bump stock ban is particularly upset him because it was done administratively by Trump's officials. He's uncertain in the millions spent on Trump's campaign in 2016 were worth it, but he said Trump is better than the alternatives. Associated Press writers Lori Kilman and Deb Reichman in Washington and Edith Leader in New York contributed to this report. This story is from the Denver Post. At least 4 people confirmed greater than 28 vehicle crash on Interstate 70 near Denver West Highway reopens in both directions. Lakewood police on Friday arrested a 23-year-old semi-trailer driver in connection with a fiery chain reaction collision on Interstate 70 that involved 28 vehicles, killed at least 4 people, and closed a section of the interstate for more than 24 hours. Rogo Larzo Aguilera Medeiros of Texas is being held in the Jefferson County Jail for investigation of vehicular homicide. The Lakewood Police Department said he was taken into custody after being treated for minor injuries. He will appear Saturday afternoon in Jefferson County Court for advisement hearing. The Jefferson County coroner confirmed 4 deaths but did not release identities, genders, and ages of the victims. Bodies were burned beyond recognition in the crash, and investigators were having trouble counting victims early Friday. Lakewood Police spokesman John Romero said Aguilera Medeiros' truck crashed into backed-up traffic as it barreled down eastbound I-70. The impact triggered a series of explosions after lumber being hauled by Aguilera Medeiros' truck ignited with gasoline spilled from damaged cars. 6 people were taken by West Metro Fire Rescue to hospitals with serious injuries. Lakewood Police spokesman Ty Countryman said Good Samaritans carried their victims to hospitals. Police said in a Friday afternoon news release a West Metro Fire Rescue firefighter was injured when he was hit by debris from an exploding tire. The fire department reported his injuries were described as minor. The wreck also damaged the interstate surface, forcing the Colorado Department of Transportation to make emergency repairs. Lumber from the suspect's flatbed shot across the highway and caught on fire when cars exploded and spilled fuel. Ignited raging flames brought temperatures on the highway surface to above 2,500 degrees, melting aluminum and turning pavement into rubble, said Josh Leppy, CDOT's chief engineer. I think we lose sight that vehicles are deadly weapons, and we need to be more careful when we are driving, Leppy said. Traffic had come to a near standstill Thursday afternoon after an earlier crash blocked lanes on eastbound I-70. That crash, which happened near Ward Road at rush hour, involved a school bus and semi-trailer. Only minor injuries were reported. Christina Ryan, who was driving the Evergreen to Loveland on Thursday afternoon, described a scene of chaos. The traffic was bumper to bumper, moving about 10 miles per hour when she heard a explosion behind her sedan. I look up into my rearview mirror, and cars and semis are coming toward me, and everything is on fire, she said. The only reason she and her 15-year-old daughter weren't killed by it was that a pickup truck behind them was towing a trailer. Ryan said the semi-trailer would have hit their car if it hadn't come to a stop after running over the flatbed trailer. She said the man driving the pickup truck escaped without major injuries. Ryan's car was sideswiped at some point, but she's not sure who hit her or how they collided. After checking that her daughter wasn't hurt, she ran back to see if she could help anyone in the burning cars. The fire was already too far out of control to get close, she said. There was just explosions everywhere and 2x4s flying and people running everywhere, she said. Ryan said it was particularly hard for her and other uninjured drivers to hear that a person had been killed and that they couldn't do anything to help. They had to remain on the scene until after 10 p.m. because police needed to document the accidents and take statements, she said. It's devastating to hear that persons will never get to go home to their family, she said. I'm sad for those families. I am sad for the truck driver. Officials opened westbound lanes mid-afternoon Friday, while the eastbound lanes reopened a few hours later at approximately 8 p.m. Prior to a reopening, CDOT crews had to wait for law enforcement to finish its investigation and for bodies to be recovered. Before starting their work, officials also needed to assess brakes damage. It was not struck by, but was scorched by flames from vehicles and spilled diesel fuel. There is no evidence that crash was intentional or that drugs and alcohol were involved, Countryman said. Investigators also will look into whether mechanical problems contributed to the crash. District Attorney Peter Weir office will make the final decision about which charges to the fire. As driver descend the 6% grade into Denver, there are numerous signs warning truck drivers to slow down. Witness statements and video footage will provide perspective on how the crash happened, Countryman said. Now for dumb laws. A dumb law segment are actual laws still on the books in many states, cities, and municipalities. This means that these laws are technically still legal. Dumb laws in Wisconsin. In Brookfield, tattooing is legal unless it is done for medical purposes. It is unlawful for one to allow another to use the first person's telephone in order to make a prank phone call. In Hudson, screens are required on all windows from May 1st to October 1st. You are not allowed to put litter into someone else's trash receptacle without express permission. No one may sit on another's parked vehicle without express consent of the owner. In La Crosse, it is legal to tie up your horse along 3rd Street. It is illegal to display an unclothed mannequin in a store window. It is legal to play checkers in public. You cannot worry a squirrel. In Milwaukee, an old ordinance forbids parking for over 2 hours unless a horse is tied to the car. It is against the law to play a flute and drums on the streets to attract attention. If anyone is thought of as offensive looking, it is illegal for him to be in public during the day. It is legal to purchase or use sparklers in the city, yet you can buy fully disassembled automatic machine guns. Now for a weather report. Our current weather data comes from the DCTV weather station located in the beautiful downtown Dove Creek. The current temperature is 53 degrees. High for today was 53 degrees. Low was 38 degrees. Barometers at 29.72 inches of falling. Humidity is at 61%. Wind is between 1 and 9 miles from the northwest. Gusts have been up to 22 miles per hour. There were 2,100 of an inch of moisture in the measured by the DCTV weather station. Moisture for the month is 7,900 of an inch. Moisture for accumulation for the year is 5.92 hundredths of an inch. Now for the big map, courtesy of the National Weather Service. Now for the big map, courtesy of the National Weather Service. Most of the western side of the country has rain and snow. Most of Wyoming has possibly a heavy snow. Most of the eastern half of the country has rain and thunderstorms. There is a possibility of flooding and severe rain stretching from Texas to the Great Lakes. Here's your exclusive DCTV 5-day forecast. Wednesday, rain, showers, high 53, low 34. Thursday, high 60, low 37. Friday, high 64, low 39. Saturday, mostly sunny, high 67, low 43. Sunday, partly sunny, high 69, low 44. Now for the snow total report, which is the amount of snowpack in the mountains across the state. We hope it will be helpful to our farmers and skiers. Statewide, the snowpack is 113% normal. Here in the Southwest, we are up to 159% of normal. Now for our climate change report. CO2 carbon dioxide is considered a greenhouse gas and is one of the principal causes of climate change. CO2 traps heat in the atmosphere, which causes climate instability. The results in significant variations worldwide of moisture and hot, cold temperatures. But the general climate trend is that the planet is slowly warming. Therefore, it is important that we report the CO2 weekly change. The following are the CO2 numbers in parts per million. Last week, 413.59. 2 weeks ago, 413.13. Last year, 410.99. 10 years ago, 388.66. 50 years ago, 326.66. Thank you, Dr. Peter Tienth of the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and Michael McGee of the CO2 Earth website for providing this information. Remember, you can help keep our kids' news show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can buy a sponsorship by calling 970-677-419. That's 970-677-419. Thank you, and back to our news director.
That's the end of today's DCTV Forge news program. This is your news director, Jonathan. Good night, and thank you for watching.